都已经坏了，你修了也没有用。对呀，对。都已经坏了，你修了也没有用。对呀，对。
Good afternoon and welcome to today's Beyond the Label Fest 2020 panel discussion aimed at highlighting the many stressors that parents and working people face, in particular with the onset of COVID-19 and all the additional stresses that brings. Today's session will look at how Pangdemonium uses the medium theatre to help raise and shed light on mental health issues. Throughout the discussion today, we hope we'll help equip working adults and parents with the ability to better deal with such stresses and enable them to provide timely support to identify and support themselves and their community. So first, let's start by introducing today's panelists. Maybe we'll start with Adrian.
Hi, thanks for having me. My name is Adrian Pang. I'm the co-artistic director of Pangdemonium, which I run with my wife, my boss, Tracy. This is our 10th year of running Pangdemonium, and a big part of what we do with the stories that we tell through our productions is to ignite the conversation about mental health. I mean, thus far we've done at least 4 or 5 productions that have to do with mental health. That little trailer that was shown just before we started talking was just a little snapshot of a few productions that we've done in the past that have to do with mental illness. There was a musical, Next to Normal, which dealt with bipolar disorder, and then saw a bit of The Effect, which had to do with clinical depression and the efficacies of medication for clinical depression. We also had a snapshot of a play called The Father, which looked at dementia and Alzheimer's. And then there was a production that, in fact, was the most recent production we just did before COVID hit us, called The Son, which I acted with my real-life son on stage, and it looked at youth depression and anxiety, and how we as a society are really struggling to understand what those illnesses actually are and how we actually treat people with it. So as I said, Pangdemonium has, a part of our mission is to get people to talk about it, to face up to this very, very real threat that I think any of us can be under. And it's so important for us to not be afraid to talk about it. And that's why a platform like this today for us to be able to have a dialogue about it, and it hopefully reaches out to people watching, and if it touches people in a meaningful way, and it makes them open up their minds to want to do something about it and get help, or get help in for somebody else. I think that's just so important.
Brilliant, thanks Adrian. Dorothy, maybe you can introduce yourself as well.
Hi, my name is Dorothy. I'm from Singapore Association for Mental Health. So our organization's vision is actually mental wellness for all. And we believe that mental wellness and mental well-being is applicable for everybody, not just for people with diagnosed mental illness. And so the center that I work in is called Creative Mindset Hub. So what we do over there is that we're open to people from all walks of life, all ages. They come to our center for creative therapeutic interventions. So we do mostly visual arts. We also have sports. We have drama, music. We also have art therapy and counseling using creative approaches. So what we really hope to do in Creative Mindset Hub is really to use the creative elements in our work with people of all ages, of all walks of life. They come here in a safe space without any stigma. Nobody knows what we have or our background. We're all there to create, to share our lives, to express ourselves in a safe space. So that's what we do. So for myself, I'm also working as a counselor in Creative Mindset Hub as well.
Perfect, thanks Dorothy. And then on to Hafiza, if you could give us a brief introduction and let us know a little bit about yourself.
Okay. Hi everyone, my name is Fiza for short. I'm someone with mental health issues, in recovery. But in the same time, I'm also working as program executive in Club Hill. So my workplace, Club Hill, is actually kind of similar to Creative Say. It's just that those that are working there, and also we are serving those with mental health issues. Yeah. So I've been in recovery for since 2010 until now. Yeah. So it's a up and down route or journey, but I'm sure we will be there. Yeah.
Perfect, thank you. I mean, we obviously have some very well-experienced panelists here, so it's great to have you all here to kind of talk about some of the challenges that society faces. I think let's maybe move on a little bit and talk in more detail around art and how specifically theatre, I think, and storytelling can help patrons explore some issues around mental health and give an outlet. So Adrian, you touched briefly on some of the productions we saw, and we saw those clips. Perhaps you can share a little bit more detail on those productions featured and specifically some of the mental health issues that they highlighted as well.
Sure. So as I mentioned earlier, there's a bunch of productions that have explored different aspects of mental health and mental illness. And I mean, to be honest, I don't think it's accurate to say that we actively go out and look for stories that specifically deal with these issues. But I think there's something about these stories which personally I'm just drawn to. And to be honest, I don't think I really realize why until we actually chose these stories and told these stories and learned so much from these stories. And it made me realize that perhaps one of the reasons that I am so drawn to stories of people struggling with mental health is because I myself have struggled with it for a lot of my adult life and not even realizing it. I mean, for example, the musical Next to Normal, which explored bipolar disorder, there's just elements of the depiction of this person struggling with this illness, and it is an illness, just like it is a physical illness. Just because you can't actually see it on your person, it doesn't mean it is not an illness that needs professional help. That really spoke to me, seeing how this person is portrayed to be struggling with this very private, personal hell that they themselves don't understand. And the family structure is also kind of creaking under the weight of trying to support this one individual, because And just like in another play like The Effect, which looked at clinical depression, The Father, which looked at dementia, and The Son, which looked at youth depression and anxiety, it doesn't just affect the one person. Of course, it's a very private turmoil, but the support system around that person, the loved ones, the family, the friends, it is such an intricate and vital support system that I think we as a society are still struggling to in turn support. So it is a very, very complex issue that I think only in the last maybe decade or so people have become slightly enlightened enough to dare to talk about. And I guess our mission with Pangdemonium is to look at issues which are difficult to talk about, with all kinds of different issues. And mental health, like I said, is something that resonates with me personally, especially in the last 5-6 months once COVID hit us. It's affected us individually in many, many different ways. I myself went through a really, really difficult dark patch for a few months around kind of May and June time. And I'm, okay about talking about now, but I had to seek professional treatment. I went to see my therapist all over again after a long time not seeing her. I'm on a course of medication that is keeping me on an even keel. And it's helped me a lot, of course, with the love of your family and your friends. And I'll say this one thing about the production of The Sun. There's one key line in it, in the play, which struck me very profoundly, and that was, sometimes love is not enough. And that really resonated with me, because if someone is ill in your family, for example, a physical illness, even if it's liver failure or cancer, even with all the love that you can give that one person as a family member, that love is not going to heal that illness. It's not going to take that illness away. You can love them, yes, of course, love them and support them as much as you can, but you have to recognize that, as I said earlier, mental illness is an illness, and you need to seek professional help. Don't be afraid to seek professional help. Sometimes that is the first and most important step to make.
Okay, perfect. I mean, I think it's you're right, and it's fantastic that you're able to talk about it so openly, not just through the kind of productions that you've done, but obviously in a forum like this, to be able to talk so openly. I mean, Dorothy, it'd be great to get kind of your perspective on the video clips that you saw, but your own experiences of kind of handling mental health, and any advice you can give to the audience on the best way to deal with it.
So I think for us in our center, and also in our work, we use a lot of arts, maybe not so much of theatre or drama, but more focus on visual arts. So we really believe that the arts is really a platform that is non-threatening. Sometimes when we talk about our problems, maybe to an external party or to a counselor, we may feel that we are not ready to trust or open up to the person. But sometimes when we create, we tell our stories, we are being given a voice to tell our stories through any medium, actually, through song, through dance, through painting, through drawing. It provides a kind of, we call this a cathartic release, purging of emotions, repressed emotions that are being held within. I don't know whether you guys create your own art, and you find that actually after that I feel like really a sense of relief. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's also a way that you can talk about your issues without actually really to talk directly about it. So we call it externalizing, right? Like, we are not the problem is the problem. So when we create a problem onto paper, onto theatre, onto a song, it's kind of like our identity is not the problem, it's outside of us, and we can look at it from a different perspective. We can talk about it, we can find new perspectives, we can get our group's opinion on how can we look at it, how can we deal with it, how can we cope with it, Maybe this art, what can you do? Any changes you can make to it? Anything that strikes to you? Yeah, so there's a lot of things that we try to do. Not the traditional medium of talking, but I guess my encouragement to the audience here is really find ways to express yourself through means that really speaks to you. You may not like theatre, you may not like dance, but maybe you like sports as a way to express yourself as well.
Okay, fantastic. And I know kind of from my own personal perspective, sport is always the way that I find a way to kind of, when times are tough and to get through it, it always kind of lifts the mood and makes you feel better, gives you sort of, I guess, hope. So I think I love the message of finding your own output to be able to kind of make yourself feel better, but also talk about it and help to solve some of the challenges. I mean, I think obviously, Adrian, you talked a little bit about your own challenges in particular in the last 6 months and prior to that, but obviously the acceleration in the last 6 months. And I'm sure there are many people who are watching this today who have faced a similar situation. I'm kind of interesting from your perspective of some of the stresses that you faced that really kind of I guess raised it from a point of where you were to suddenly feeling that you needed to go and seek help. What were some of the sort of big drivers of that?
I think what Dorothy was saying really hits the nail on the head in that I think we all need some form of a life buoy to hang on to in times of turmoil, emotional turmoil, life's turmoil. I mean, for myself, theatre has kind of saved my life, really. And I say it sounds dramatic to even say it in those terms, but I never realized how much it meant to me just for my own mental survival until maybe in the last 10 years with my theatre company, Pangdemonium. It's really saved my life. And I without it, I think I'd be really struggling, and that's why when COVID hit us, this one thing that I've been hanging on to for dear life for the last 10 years was taken away from me because we were just unable to produce any live theatre, and that purpose, which has been my driving force, for these years, was kind of stolen away from me, and it really plunged me into this pit of despair. I mean, to the point where I couldn't get out of bed. I didn't feel like doing anything. I tried to stay fit and embrace some sort of a sport, but it was just so difficult. I felt a weight on me the whole time. I was just crying in the middle of the night for no reason, not being able to sleep, just taking, solo walks in the park in the rain and just crying, for no particular reason. I was just really, really floundering. And so making the decision to seek help professionally. I mean, my family rallied around me, gave me a lot of love. But they also very astutely said to me, you need to do something more. We're here for you, we support you, but you need to make the decision to go and speak to someone and to really make that decision to seek professional help. And that was a big turning point for me. And for example, with the production that we did this year, The Sun, having staged it, it was a very cathartic, actually quite traumatic experience for me every night to tell that story. Ironically, as a parent in the story, as a parent of a youth going through depression and not being able to connect with this boy and not being able to understand what he was going through and not having the sense to seek help on behalf of this boy. And 3 months later, I was going through that myself. It was just kind of a mix of ironies, because even through staging that play itself, there were so many people who wrote to us, having seen the play, to say, "Thank you so much. This is my life. this is what I go through. Thank you for voicing what I've been going through for years. Nobody understands me. I felt so alone through my whole life. Now I know that I'm not alone. And for people to hopefully be motivated to do something, and that's what this platform is called. It is beyond the label, to see beyond the illness into that person, and to realize that this person is still worth something, and life is so precious. You just have to find a way to anchor yourself and carry on beyond this illness. So yeah.
Perfect, thank you. I mean, let's hear from Fiza. I mean, your story is obviously an incredible story, and you're clearly a very resilient woman dealing with some challenges. So interested to get your perspective on your own situation and what's helped you kind of get through it. Would be great for the audience to hear, I think.
Oh, okay. Like I said earlier on, I had this when I'm in my teenage life, in late teenage when I'm 18. And that point of time, I was pregnant of my first son. Yeah, so the stigma is not only on mental health issues, but also on being a single mother myself. At that point of time, before I got married like 2 years back. And then what hit me the most is when at that point of time, I was all alone, struggling. I didn't know of like what to do, and being a 18-year-old pregnant women, I really don't know of like, okay, what should I do next? Like, how should I look after my son? But then this come inside me where I told myself that I can't be low and I need to move on because my son needs me. But then at that point of time, I was some form of denial. I had depression, but I told myself that I'm totally fine. Yeah, it got worse from depression. It got worse to schizoaffective disorder after I gave birth. Yeah, that's where it was really traumatizing because all of a sudden I hear voices which wasn't there, and I can see even things that wasn't there, and it's kind of scary in a way also at that point of time. And I couldn't control my emotions until I lay out to my son. Yeah. And when it happens, I told myself that, oh, if this were to carry on, I don't think I'll be a good mother. Yeah, so I need to do something to really improve myself and to look after my son better. Yeah, so I seek help. I call my social worker in NUH and I seek help. I was really crying at that point of time. I was like, please help me. I didn't want to go through this, but I really need help. Yeah, so it got to a point where I need to be separated from my son for a week. Yeah, and being a mother like separated from my son is like really terrible. So I told my psychiatrist that I want to look after my son. Yeah, and I will work on my recovery process. But then it's not a easy journey. Yeah, there is up and down, and then when I eat the medication also, there is a side effect of the medicine. Yeah, which I couldn't even walk properly. When I walk, I would tend to tumble to the back. Yeah, so I tried to stop. When I stopped, I got a relapse. Yeah, so I told myself that, oh dear, if I stop this medication which is helping me, just because of this side effect that I'm having, and it's not making me any better, so I really need to do something about it. Yeah, so that's where I talked to my counselor in Club Hero. Yeah, and I started to really work on my recovery process. Yeah, and I went through this peer specialist course this year. Yeah, and it really hits me where this trainer tell me that we are the professional of our own recovery. Yeah, we know what we are capable of. Yeah, and we are unique in a way, like what Adrian said just now. When someone that had that physical illness, they can be seen, but we are quite special in a way because we can't be seen. Yeah, because it's really inside. Yeah. So in this COVID also is quite challenging also. Yeah, because I had not only I had one, but I have two boys to look after. Yeah, so it is kind of interesting but challenging in the same time. Yeah, but I took up some hobbies which helped me, which is cooking, and then I express out like through writing or journaling. Yeah, and I do ways that can really help me to go through this. Yeah.
Perfect. I mean, it really is an amazing story, and thanks for sharing. I think I'm sure sort of the audience really appreciate the sharing. All three of you have kind of touched on, I think, one of the major challenges with mental health versus, say, physical health or a physical issue is that, you know, if you've got a cold or a broken arm, it's there and can be seen and very clear, and there's a whole industry built up around fixing physical ailments, but there isn't that necessarily that same support network for sort of mental illness. Although it does exist, it's not as well known, and there isn't such a big industry around it. I guess maybe from your perspective, Dorothy, it'd be good to understand kind of how does one know when to kind of go and seek help, and maybe what are some of the barriers that they might encounter, that if you had a message to give to them to say how do you overcome those barriers, you know, would help kind of try and raise awareness of the support network that is out there if needed.
I guess, like, I think one way to tell when you need to seek help, I guess it's when you feel that you can't really function. So like maybe Adrian, I think you had experience where you just keep crying and crying and somehow just can't move on with life. Maybe for some people, they are unable to go to work, they can't go to school, their relationships with their family, their loved ones are affected because of the symptoms that are arising. So I guess that's when maybe it's time to seek help. But of course, I'd like to also clarify that all of us can actually seek therapy or counseling, whether you have a mental illness or not. Yeah, as in there are some people who want to go for counseling or therapy because of their own growth. They want to gain insight on some of their situations that may be bothering them, that may be causing them stress. So it's actually okay to go and see a counselor or to get support from your friends and your family at whatever stage you're at. But I guess the tipping point, to really seek help is when you feel that you're really just there's some impairment in some of the things that you're doing in your daily life, and you're overwhelmed. You find that you can't really cope, or most importantly, if you find that you are causing harm to yourself, or maybe having thoughts of harming ourselves or even harming others. And I think as family and friends, when we see our loved ones having such thoughts, maybe it's time to gently, nudge the person or accompany the person to seek professional help, to see a psychiatrist. It's okay. It's really okay to do so. And just now you mentioned some of the barriers, right? I think there are so much barriers. That's why the beyond the label is here. There's the stigma. But I guess there is also this, I think being Asian, right? We have this kind of notion that we need to kind of like have it all together, don't air our dirty linen in the public. Okay, I just need to show that I'm strong, men don't cry, which is actually not, it's rubbish. I feel that everyone it's okay to express our emotions, men or women or whoever, right? And I guess it's also the lack of understanding of mental illness. There's still a lot of people that think that having a mental illness or having mental health issues is a sign of weakness, but it's not. right? And also the idea that, oh, people with mental health issues are violent, which is actually not true. It's not totally not true at all. And also the lack of understanding of what is a symptom or what is not. So I guess read up, right? Read up for people who may be experiencing some distress, to identify, you know, maybe, okay, I think my friend, I am just crying excessively and I can't just seem to crawl out of bed. This is definitely one warning sign, right? Or I'm having thoughts of wanting to harm myself. Yeah, so I guess understanding the symptoms is really important. And some people, they refuse to seek help because they feel that, oh, these are okay. Yeah, I'm fine. And I think one of the barrier is that people are just so caught up with the daily grind that they don't make time for themselves. I'm currently seeing a client for counseling, and he's a caregiver, someone with mental illness, and he's just so busy, you know, taking care of his son. And actually, he tells me that, you know, the time, that 1 hour spent with me in therapy is kind of his time for himself. So actually, I'm just like, wow, okay. Sometimes we're just so caught up with so many things that we have to do that we don't make time for ourselves to seek help, to seek treatment, or even to care for ourselves. Yeah. So I guess it needs to be intentional. We need to really carve out time to spend time with ourselves, to, you know, do things that, you know, helps us mentally and emotionally and physically.
Okay, perfect. Just a reminder to the live audience out there that if you have any questions for the panelists, there will be a Q&A session at the end, so feel free to type your questions into the question box, and we'll endeavour to answer as many of them as we can at the end of the session. So I guess just to follow up on that, how to know when to seek help, I guess, Adrian, from your perspective, anything you want to add on that point?
I think, as Dorothy was saying, it's just so vital, just from my own experience, to learn to listen to yourself. And I'm more and more convinced that I think it's probably safe to say everybody, to a certain extent, is affected by something that manifests itself in some kind of a psychological fashion. And really, you know, having done the productions that we've done that have dealt with mental health, and speaking with people who've come to see the plays and hearing about their stories, I mean, you just go about your ordinary life every day. You really don't know what somebody else is going through. You really have no idea what mental anguish somebody else that you're passing in the street might be going through, because it doesn't show, because you just cannot see it. And a lot of people will hide their pain behind a smiling face, behind a mask, and never mind the mask that we've all been wearing for the last 6 months. But that's why it's so important for each individual to just learn to tune into their own voices, their own needs, and just hear what your mind is telling you, what your heart is telling you, because very often there's this kind of silent scream that is going on. Just learn to listen and tend to that voice. And as you were just saying, this is something that I've never ever practiced before in my 54 years of life, but only in the last few months, when I started to seek help and realize that I needed to care for myself. I've started to start my day with just 5-10 minutes of just so-called meditating. I'm not very good at it, but just a bit of quiet time just to start the day, to prepare myself for the day, just to listen to all the inner workings of everything that's going on, and just to slowly ease into the day, you know, give my cat a hug, give my family a hug, have a nice kind of relaxed breakfast before starting the day proper, rather than waking up and I check my phone. This phone is destroying my brain, my life. So I'm trying. Oh, look, a message. So I'm trying not to be so tied to the thing, because I mean, I'm no expert, but you know, by all accounts, our digital devices are frying our brains and not doing, our mental health much good anyway. So it's just doing these little things, I think, to self-care. It's just so important. If you're not caring for yourself, that old cliche of if you don't love yourself, you can't love anybody else. I think that is just so true.
Yeah, I mean, I think both of you raised very, very good points. In society today, the noise is constant. Right? You're never away from it. It's non-stop. If it's a work email or a WhatsApp or a notification coming to your phone, and I think that we're well versed in physically looking after ourselves, but not necessarily the mental awareness of being able to kind of stop and take stock and realize that you need to look after that aspect of you as well. So I guess, Fiza, from your perspective, I'd be interested to know some of the mechanisms you have in place, kind of to share with the audience on how you deal day to day.
Okay, what I do is that first thing, each time when I'm back from work, I will throw my phone to the side. Yes. Yeah, because it is really killing us in a way, actually. Yeah. Because whenever the phone is in my hand, I will be like, oh, is there any message? Is there any notification? So I'll be like, forget it. So just throw it one side. Yeah, that's what I do. And then another thing also is I do the things that I enjoy. Yeah, which is I love cycling. So each time when this emotion is like building up, I will just tell my husband, like, look dear, I'm going out for a while. I'm going to just relax myself and have that me time. Yeah. I learned that actually this year. Previous year is like I always been thinking of that. Okay, if I go out, then who is going to look after my son? Who is going to look after this, after that? But my counselor hit me. It will be like, if you don't have that me time, then how are you going to look after the person that you love in a better way? Yeah, because for myself, I'm not only a person with recovery, but I'm also a caregiver, towards my mother and also my husband. Yeah, so it's like sometimes I need to show that strong face where, okay, everything will be alright, that I'm here for you. But it's really, really tiring at times. Yeah, because I always tell them is that I will show them that fake face sometimes where, oh, I'm okay, nothing bothering me. Yeah, but inside me is like, oh, it's really I really cannot take it. Which, because I had my breakdown actually last November, where I just where my dad just passed away. Yeah, so it really hit me a lot, and I just go down flat, and I can't really like stand up. I just keep crying, and it's like I can't move. Yeah, so I started slowly where I started to call my counselor. Yeah, I started to talk to him, and he's there for me. It's like every week he will do this counseling session with me. He will really talk to me. Yeah, so that's what I do also with my coping methods. Yeah, which is if I know something is really bothering me, I will seek help. If I can't seek help, then I will just like write on a journal. Yeah, because sometimes when a person hurt us emotionally, sometimes, right? So I would just write down, and I would just like tear the paper and just like throw. It's like although throwing the anger together. Yeah. So I think that's the most important thing, which is to really enjoy ourselves, love ourselves. Yeah, and don't be too like really concentrate on the things that we have to do daily.
Which is interesting you say that. I just read somewhere recently, because I've got a pretty hot temper as well. So apart from my my whole myriad of issues, temper is something that I've had to deal with for most of my life. And I just read something recently where if if someone makes you mad and you want to write an angry email to them, write a really angry email to them, and then read it, and then delete it.
Yeah.
Just a little bit like what you're saying about, you know, writing down your feelings of anger or something, and then throwing it away.
Yeah.
It's a I suppose I've never tried it. I haven't tried it yet. I'll probably send it actually, but I'll, you know, it's worth trying, right, to see how it, you know, cope with those feelings
I
of
think
rage.
it's more cathartic to tear the paper and
Right.
throw it away.
Yeah,
Yeah. It's like we are imagining that person in the paper, no? It's
Yeah.
like, example, like, it's like, I hate you, you know, it's like, please go out, please go away. No, but then it's not environmentally friendly lah. It's offensive, right? Yeah, maybe like what Adrian can
on an email. Yeah.
Make it electronic. 2020 solutions to the challenge. Okay, I mean, some great coping mechanisms there, which I'm sure all the audience really appreciate the sharing. I think, you know, and I love the bit so much. It's easy just to say, if someone asks you how you are, to say, oh, I'm okay, and you kind of crack on. And I think getting beyond that and feeling confident to talk about it is very important. I guess one final section before we go on to the Q&A. You know, obviously, I mean, Adrian, you mentioned sometimes it's very difficult to know if someone is suffering with a mental illness, and you know they appear quite normal on the outside, but you know the challenges are there. But you know, if you do suspect that someone, you know, is suffering and needs your help, do you have any tips for the audience on how you may support that and really kind of allow them, I guess, the freedom to kind of talk about it and get things off their chest? I mean, maybe Dorothy, from a professional point of view, if you can start on that one.
I think really, I think it's really the validation that is really important, because I think, I mean, people, all of us, sometimes we do feel that in our own situation, we feel like aliens actually. Like our situation is so unique, it's so hard for people to understand. But I think one really important thing that we could do to support someone who's going through distress is really to validate, to acknowledge. We don't have to be quick in giving solutions. Even if we give solutions, let it be something that's tentative. Could you consider this? Instead of do this, you know, like would you like to consider this? If you don't want to, it's okay. Yeah, but most importantly is really to see them as where they are, to see them, to hear them, and to tell them that whatever that they are feeling is normal, and whatever that they are going through is normal. Yeah, and I think one more important thing is really the community kind of support. I don't usually advocate like one person to support another, because if you're unwell, then who's going to support the other? So maybe you might want to have a community to support this person and do include the person, right? Even though the person may be going through distress, maybe feeling sad, down, but sometimes continue to invite the person in your gatherings, in your conversations. No, don't exclude them, but also understand that the person actually does need some time away sometimes. Yeah, I think that's some of the few key things that you can actually help the person. Yeah, I don't know.
Actually, I will just add on from being a caregiver myself, you know, towards my husband. Because sometimes you will tend to judge, and he's like, okay, you do this, you know, instead of what you think, you know, will help you. Yeah. So even though I have that experience of someone with mental health issues, but I'm sure that it's not the same as all. Yeah, and definitely it's not the same as how my husband is going through. You know, and it's like just by being there to listen, just to listen, and not by saying anything also, just by them like validating, just like express out, like, oh, this is how I feel, you know, like I'm, let them cry, let them be angry, or what. Yeah, just let them, and just assure them that, okay, whatever that you are feeling, we will still be here for you. Yeah, just lend them that ear, and so that they are assured that okay, I have someone that I can talk to. Yeah, instead of them really like building up inside and eventually it will just explode.
Actually, sorry, to add on, right?
Yeah.
I think there's also something that we try not to do is there's this thing called the toxic positivity. Like, you know, like sometimes when we're really in a rut and someone just says cheer up,
Yes.
or yeah, things will get better.
That's the last thing I want to hear.
Yeah, I mean, it actually doesn't help. Actually, it kind of like masks the pain. Yeah, it doesn't allow like ourselves to actually feel our pain. So really allow the people to feel. Yeah. I think that's really important.
As you're saying, I think you're saying as well. I mean, it's such a difficult thing for so many of us to talk about. It's been interesting, just in my own experience. Like I said, in the last few months, I've been very comfortable and open and willing and almost like wanting to talk about it. And if that's somebody asks, so how have you been? You know, I've said, well, you know, I went through a bit of a difficult time, whatever it is. And it's interesting the different kinds of responses you get to people when you say. Some people are very empathetic or very sympathetic even. But there's some people who just very obviously don't know how to deal with that information that you've been going through a difficult time. And so you can even tell, even from the phone message, that they're like, oh, why did you tell me that? I didn't want to know that. When I ask how you are, I really don't really want to know how you are. So it's, you know, people have different comfort levels of dealing with it. And, you know, to each his own, really. Because on the other hand, you just get people who say on Facebook, recently, I just got I saw a post from a friend who said, I really need to talk to someone. And I was like, oh my God, it's been an hour. Nobody's even seemingly has responded or anything. So I'm like, I better call this person. So I call this person. This person was in floods of tears over the phone. So you just do your best to just kind of know that, to make them know that they are not alone. Even that alone, that in itself, I think, hopefully means something. Actually, a couple of months into circuit breaker, I don't know why. Maybe it was out of my own need for people to reach out to me. Unmotivated, I just sent a whole bunch of messages to my close friends to say, hey, how's it going? Just checking up on you, just to make sure you're okay. And you get responses, but hey, thanks for really nice to hear from you. I've been going through this, that, I think we all just need a little bit of that, especially in this time where we're so distant from one another still. It's just important to support one another and listen to one another.
Great. Well, thank you to the three of you for all the sharing. I think it's been a great session. I think we've reached the end of the questions now, although your work for the day is not done, because there are some questions from the audience to answer. So I think, all right, I will ask the questions and then hand over to the panelists, I think, to answer as best they can. So I think we've got a question from Juan Rizal. I hope I've said the name correctly. And the question is, what can we do to eradicate the mental health stigma? So maybe Dorothy, if you can start with that one.
Wow.
What a big question,
It's a
very
big
broad.
question. Yeah. Maybe all of you can add on, but maybe what I can think of is keep the conversation going. I mean, do not let this conversation just be during the Beyond the Label Festival. Continue to talk about it. Continue to, I think, even in your table conversations with our family and friends, be open to share our experiences. I think all of us have our own lived experiences. Share our recovery journey, share what has helped, what has not helped. I think that's one. How about you guys?
Okay, if talking about stigma, right, I can put it into two, which is one, our own self-stigma. Yeah, another one is, which I call it the community stigma, because it involves our friends, our families, the community. Yeah. So the self-stigma is where we ourselves think that, example, that, oh, we have these mental health issues, it's like that's it, that's the end of the world. But actually it's not lah, right? So that's our self-stigma. Even though people tell us is that, no, it's okay, it's normal to feel like this. It's just illness that you're going through or that. But if we ourselves we think that it's otherwise, it will be hard also. Yeah, and also our friends, actually our family plays the most important part. Yeah, because we stay with them and we see them every day, right? So it's that if they don't like really understand us and they have that stigma where snap out of it, when you are really like depressed, example, and you really can't move like that. No, wake up, you have to snap out of it. You cannot be like this. It will bring us like more, oh dear, how I wish I can just run away from this house, right? So the stigma will still be ongoing, even though we have like a lot of this festival example. But then hopefully more can understand that this mental health illness, like it is just the same as all other illness. If we can try our best to understand other illness, so please, what about mental health?
Yeah, absolutely, and that's why through the work that Pangdemonium have been doing, we've been trying to tell very specific stories about very specific individuals going through their own very specific hell, that we hope will also resonate with specific individuals who come and have these stories told to them. And it has been incredible, the feedback that we've gotten from audience members who, like I said, tell us that they really needed to have their story told in this way, because it can be so isolating to go through what they're going through. And hopefully by telling these stories and making people who are perhaps initially resistant to even embracing what these stories are about, to open up their hearts, open up their minds, to realize that there are people, probably people that mean a lot to them around them, that they don't realize are going through this. Case in point, Pangdemonium have been working on an online play that will start streaming on the 15th of October till the 1st of November. A place called Waiting for the Host. And it's a comedy, but there's a poignancy to it because essentially the character I play is a pastor of a church where church services have gone online, and he's going through a real crisis of confidence, a crisis of faith even, because he's drowning. He's not sure if he's leading his flock, his church, his congregation to any sense of hope. And he's struggling with his own sense of purpose, and he's going through his own depression as a leader of these people. But what he does is, in this play, is he in spite of himself, he inadvertently opens up to his congregation, and shares his crisis and shares the struggle that he's been having. And that's such an important thing for him to do, because it's the first step towards him finding some sort of hope. And so do tune into that, Waiting for the Host, starting on the 15th of October, online at Cystic Live. And that's all we want, really. Especially in times like this, we want some sense of guiding lights along this tunnel that we're going, that will lead us to that light at the end of this tunnel. And talking, not be afraid to talk to people, open up.
Perfect, thank you. I think we have some more questions. The next question coming. Okay, so we have a question from Dee Bulbaku. If you could paint a picture for us, what are your best hopes, metaphors, symbols, and images for the mental health sector in Singapore by 2030? That's a pretty big question to answer as well, but probably maybe one for you to start with, Adrian.
Oh, great, thanks a lot.
Put you on the spot.
Thanks a lot. I think we've come some way in the last couple of decades, but we still have a long way to go, just as we do with many issues that we have in our society. We still have a long way to go. As I said, I think that's been small steps in the community for people to know that there are avenues to seek help. The word going to see a therapist is perhaps still a little bit of a stigma to it, to be totally honest. Just because I'm someone who has been seeing a therapist and is perfectly willing to talk about it, it doesn't mean that everybody else is. But I'm hoping that with these positive progressive steps year upon year, by 2030 we get to a point where everyone is exercising self-care a little bit more in a very tangible way and looking out for one another. We have to, sorry to be sounding like an old man, but we all have to look out for one another, man.
Okay. Anyone else want to answer that question?
I think that should be a question.
Yeah, that's big.
I have an imagery, like
Okay.
maybe the picture that comes to my mind is one of an open hand, two open hands like that is scarred. I think it kind of symbolizes people who are being willing to be open, not just to share. We keep talking about sharing our stories, but also being open to receive, to hold, to contain. Yeah. So I mean, this is the picture that comes to my mind, like open hands, open arms. Yeah, it's short and sweet.
Okay, I like it. Okay, I think we've been given the 5 minutes, 5-minute warning. So I don't know if there are any more questions. Okay, so no more questions. So we'll proceed to wrap up. I think we've got 5 minutes. So I think maybe before I kind of try and summarize all the amazing kind of conversations, maybe just 30 seconds from each of you, if you wanted to give like one message to the audience from today, what would that be?
I mean, it's such a huge
Yeah.
monster topic to talk about. I mean, 1 hour is we're just skimming the surface here, really, aren't we?
Okay, all right. Well, maybe I will try and summarize what's been discussed, and maybe you can add anything on top of that if I missed anything.
Sure.
So I think, I mean, obviously it's been an amazing discussion, and thank you to the 3 panelists for kind of talking so openly, I think, about what is a very difficult subject, and for spending the time to come here at the Beyond the Label Fest 2020. I think obviously there's a big fight against the mental health stigma, and it continues to prevent people seeking help for their mental health conditions. But I love the idea that sometimes the strongest stigma actually exists within yourself, and actually being able to kind of talk about that and kind of get over the self-stigma is a huge step forward, I think. So I think that was kind of quite a key message for me. I think the other thing that sort of came out quite strongly from the discussion is that, no one is alone, particularly in difficult times. There's a community of support out there, and there are a number of different mediums and forums for that support to help people kind of talk about it, but also deal with the challenges. So I think that was quite a key message coming out for me. And I think the other bit, which Adrian kind of probably more eloquently described than I can, is speak to your loved ones as well. I think just reach out if you need the support, but equally don't be afraid to seek professional help and seek that professional help early on. And then I think one thing I will just mention before I finish is that Beyond the Label do have a help bot called Bell, which is pretty amazing actually. I wasn't aware of it until I got involved in this project, and I had a little look at it earlier today, and it's pretty impressive. So it's basically a virtual help bot. So anyone who's overwhelmed with anxiety can use that help bot to help kind of seek information, seek the resources that are available out there, and And I think as someone kind of new to this, I wasn't aware of all the amazing resources that are out there. So you can get access to Bell, and I'm sure we can share this on the Facebook page as well at go.gov.sg/Bell-helpbot. So I think, again, just a final thank you to all the panelists for all the amazing discussion. I hope you enjoyed the session, and I'm sure there are many more amazing Beyond the Label 2020 events to come for the rest of the day as well. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.